Ministry. We are broadcasting live tonight from Washington, D.C. I'm your host, Cassandra Archer, a.k.a. the Divine Diva of Comedy. Thank you for tuning in tonight. We have a great show. You better tune in to this Vessel Radio. See, this is a wonderful thing, man.
When I open these two eyes, the world has not been kind to me. It's not pleasing to me. The world no longer appeals to me.
Tune in every Tuesday right here at Vessel Radio, 7 o'clock. Don't be late, you know.
Majority of the males in my family are in jail to this day.
Wow. And it's Brother Shazan and Preston. My God, man, you can't tell me say they're not good people.
Says hello, my name is D. My mother's currently in the hospital at this present time in ICU due to a blood clot in her heart.
For 5 straight weeks, I went to 5 straight funerals.
Wow.
I just lost a child.
I just received news today that I may not be able to carry a pregnancy to full term.
Tune into Vessel Radio every Tuesday. You hear what I say?
Good evening, everyone. Welcome again to the Vessel Ministry over Industry. My name is Craig, otherwise known as Shazan. Once again, I will be your special guest host for this evening. I guarantee you guys I will not be in front of this camera next week, but we will have our two beautiful guests that were joining with us last week, joining us once again shortly to continue our discussion on domestic violence and abuse. Once again, my name is Craig, otherwise known as Shazan. I am normally the man behind the music, also the producer of this show. Want to wish everyone a happy, blessed Black History Month. And we're going to go ahead and start our show off as we do each and every Tuesday with today's scripture. Today's scripture comes from the book of Psalms, chapter 34, and I will be reading from verses 15 through 19 from the Good News Bible. And it reads, "The Lord watches over the righteous and listens to their cries, but he opposes those who do evil, so that when they die, they are soon forgotten. The righteous call to the Lord, and he listens. He rescues them from all their troubles. The Lord is near to those who are discouraged. He saves those who have lost all hope. Good people suffer many troubles, but the Lord saves them from them all." That is the scripture that I have just read from Psalms 34, once again, verses 15 through 19 from the Good News Bible. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I am so excited to be here. Once again, another Tuesday evening. For those of you who missed our broadcast on last week, Tuesday, you can definitely be sure to recap it on YouTube. But let me introduce our beautiful guest this lovely evening. To my right, I have Miss Cassandra Archer, otherwise known as the Divine Diva of Comedy. And to my left, I have the beautiful minister, Alicia James. And they are going to share their testimonies and recap how they are survivors of domestic violence and abuse. Welcome once again, ladies. I am so glad to have you both here this evening. How was your weekend?
Busy as always.
The same thing here, very, very busy, but I relaxed a little bit, just a little bit.
Okay, yeah, I think shout out to Greater Commission Church in Oxon Hill. I had a great time at the women's conference. So, as always, busy.
Busy. How about you, Alicia? Did you do anything special this past week?
Actually, I was able to see a friend that I grew up with. We've been friends since I was 16 years old.
Wow,
and they were
that's
just
nice.
in town from South Carolina. So he came into town. He was singing for a choir. So we met up for brunch. He and I and my husband met for brunch. So that was good. That was nice.
Excellent. Well, you know, it was a big weekend for me and probably a lot of other fellas that were watching the Super Bowl. Yeah, you know, a lot of things went on in this weekend with the Super Bowl. For those of you who were following the Super Bowl, obviously you witnessed the New England Patriots winning the Super Bowl with probably the dumbest play call ever
Sound like
for
you
the
lost
Seattle
some money.
Seahawks.
Did you lose some money?
No, I didn't lose anything. I just sat back and watched and was just totally blown away. But along with the Super Bowl, the final score, obviously there's the big halftime performance.
Yeah.
But a lot of people get overly excited about the
Too
Super Bowl
excited.
commercials.
Yeah.
They do. Oh,
Yeah.
they do.
You know, the Super
the
Bowl
highlight.
commercials is the highlight
It is the
sometimes
highlight.
of the
Yeah.
Super Bowl.
Yes.
But one of the commercials, ladies, that really intrigued me was actually a public service announcement on
yeah.
domestic violence.
Yes.
For those of you who did not get an opportunity to see that domestic violence public service announcements, we're going to go ahead and take a quick look at it right now.
Yeah.
911, operator 901. Where's the emergency?
127 Brymere.
Okay, what's going on there?
I'd like to order a pizza for delivery.
Ma'am, you've reached 911. This is an emergency line.
Large with half pepperoni, half mushroom.
You know you've called 911. This is an
Do
emergency
you
line.
know how long it'll be?
Okay, ma'am, is everything okay over there? Do you have an emergency or not?
Yes.
And you're unable to talk because...
Right.
Is there someone in the room with you? Just say yes or no.
Yes.
Okay, it looks like I have an officer about a mile from your location. Are there any weapons in your house?
No.
Can you stay on the phone with me?
No. See you soon. Thank you.
Welcome back to the Vessel Ministry Over Industry. For those of you just joining us, feel free to give us a call at 276-318-3773. You can also send us an email to vesselradio@gmail.com. What you've just witnessed was a public service announcement about domestic violence. Obviously, that was sponsored by the NFL with all the incidents that has gone on within the NFL, within the society as a whole with domestic violence. And I understand that both of you ladies were once victims of domestic violence, but God blessed you, were now survivors of the domestic violence. Why don't you both just go ahead and recap your testimony for our viewers that are just tuning in with us?
Okay. As I stated last week, and I was 18 years old when my domestic violence started, and it would happen with my children's father. And as I stated before, due to both of our brokenness, you usually attract what you are, and that's exactly what it was. Although our path were different, as I stated, I wasn't really street savvy. He was, but yet brokenness is brokenness.
Yes.
And just a recap of it, trying to fix it, trying to save him.
Yes.
I thought I could save him, thought if I showed him love, if I could just, if I always felt like if he just knew somebody really loved him,
Right. Yes.
that the change would come. And as I stated before, that change just didn't come, in the abuse increase. You think, one day, he's going to get it. One day, he's going to really realize I'm not his enemy. One day he's really going to realize I'm the one that have your back.
Right.
One day you're going to realize I'm the one that truly loves you.
Yes.
But that one day just didn't come.
Never came.
No, and
Yes.
it got to the point, as I stated last week, it just got to the point where it's either he or I.
Yeah.
I wasn't mentally the same person anymore. I wasn't spiritually the same person anymore. My whole identity had completely changed. I was no longer Alicia anymore. She died. That Alicia died. I hid from my friends. I gained a lot of weight. Tremendous weight just from being depression. Food became my friend. Isolated myself, stayed in the house. If I saw any of my friends out in the street or anywhere, I would always make sure that I would go in the opposite direction. My children and he just became my world, and that was the sum of it. Until one day, and I had to get tired. You have loved ones that's tired for you,
Right.
but I had to get tired. I had to have had enough.
Right.
Now, understand that this had gone on for about 12 years,
Yes,
right?
absolutely. 12 years. I was with him from age 18 to age 30.
Wow.
So, again, I had died.
Yeah.
Alicia had died. I was no longer the same person. And as I stated before, once leaving him, I just became very hard. That nurturing part of me was no longer there. I mentioned earlier, the sexual abuse. So that part, was very, very difficult for me. It was very difficult for me to let anybody, and I didn't trust anybody. As far as I'm concerned, you all wanted the same thing. As I stated, I was 18. I didn't have another man to compare him. I didn't have another man to compare him to, so I didn't know what men treated you like. I had a first love prior to that, but that's puppy love.
Right.
But to turn it into an adult, I had no one to compare him to know what a man is supposed to treat you like. So it was very, very difficult for me to really see what a man is supposed to be. How a man is supposed to treat a woman. I didn't know. It took God to heal me, and it took God to show me His love.
Did you have other women around you who were telling you, or were you saw from them, okay, this is not supposed to happen to me? Was that in your life?
Mostly the people I had in my life was just as dysfunctional as I was. They had just as many dysfunctional relationship as I did. So I really didn't have anything to mimic from. I didn't have anything to idolize. Yeah. And again, it wasn't until I was single and God healed me, and I allowed God to love me, to know what real love is supposed to be like.
Right.
You mentioned something, and we're going to definitely touch on this a little later on as well. Not having another male figure to compare. Was your father actively involved in your life?
He was not. My father was not actively involved in my life, and the memories that my younger days, I remember my father being there. He was a good father. During those years, I don't know what happened that caused him to turn his back on his family, but he did. And then my good memories as a child, that changed. Something changed. Something happened, and he was no longer that father. So he left the household when I was he left the route when I was around 10 years old, but he was leaving in and out prior to that. So he wasn't constantly in our lives. So I didn't have a role model. I didn't know what a man is supposed to, how a man is supposed to treat a woman. I had nothing to look up to.
Do you think if your father was actively in your life that maybe your life would have gone a different way?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I think that's the first man that a young daughter falls in love with is her father. So absolutely. There was just the remembrance of my father. They weren't functional. It was dysfunctional.
Yeah.
And again, you don't know that because that's normal to you. So you don't know what normal is supposed to be like. You don't know what a normal household is supposed to look like. So again, it wasn't until my relationship with God developed and He began, because oftentimes the person that's sick don't know that they're sick.
Wow, our stories are so similar, but my dad is my hero. My dad was the first man I fell in love with. I can't imagine. I always call him, when I call him, I say I'm talking to the best daddy in the whole wide world, because that's who he always was. My parents were together. My mom always did teach, don't let a man put his hands on you. That's not supposed to happen. And I saw it not just in the family, but in the neighborhood, other women being abused. So there were things that were there, for me that I knew. And when you said you died, I couldn't allow Cassandra to die. Okay. And that's probably because I had that closeness with my family, because that's who they loved. That's the Cassandra that had to stay strong for my family. I think I kind of split myself up maybe into 2 or 3 people to be able to bear what I was going through. It's so it's amazing that our stories are the same. I was 21, the father of my children. I went through abuse, mental, physical, verbal. The same things where I thought I should have been totally out of my mind. And like you said, you had sexual abuse. The physical was enough for me to bear, but the verbal was even worse.
Oh yes.
Oh,
absolutely.
So, and I know that God will give you what you can handle, what you can deal with, because I don't think that I could have bared sexual abuse, and just going through that, strengthening myself. And once I started to go through therapy after the everything was over, and I looked at myself, and I was looking for Cassandra. She had to get back. So that's something I couldn't let her die.
Yes.
That was something that was way down in my mind, in my spirit. And like I told you, I would always talk over it, and I never shared. I didn't want anybody to know my pain because I didn't want them to know Cassandra was hurting.
Yes.
You know, so that's just totally amazing. You know, today I still speak to the father of my kids. We don't have a really great relationship, but I think that being cordial helped my children.
Yes.
Because his family was continuously, even after what I went through, his family, I was still auntie, I was still sister-in-law, I was still family.
Okay.
So, you know, I think I helped my children in a lot of ways. When I was invited to their family functions on their father's side, I went, you know, celebrated with the family. I was still around, and I showed them that despite of what I've gone through, I'm the bigger person. I can still be around him. You know, mom has no more fear.
Yes.
You know, this is your dad. I think that was very therapeutic to them. Okay. But yeah, I couldn't allow myself to die. That's amazing for you to say that, and I'm just thinking back to that, just trying to remember how I viced myself to separate, you know, my mind and what I was going through.
You absolutely, you lose yourself.
You do.
You completely lose yourself, and it wasn't as you. One day looking in the mirror, you know, wondering, okay, when is the real Alicia? And I'm not even gonna say the real Alicia, to be honest with you. I don't think I knew the real Alicia in the first place.
Yeah.
So
her growth was stunning.
Exactly. So I don't think I had a real identity to begin with.
Yeah.
You know, at a very young age, I became whatever. I was at Peacemaker. So I was whatever you needed me to be. That's what I was. So I don't think I've ever really had a true identity, you know, prior to meeting him. And as we stated before, it was the enemy's job to try to make sure that I never do find the real me.
It's interesting. For those of you, again, just tuning in, please feel free to send us your comments via email. You can do so to vesselradio@gmail.com. After last week's discussion, we actually received quite a bit of feedback and comments. So I'm going to pose a couple of questions that some of our viewers had submitted emails on.
Okay.
For the sake of privacy, I won't mention the emailer's name, but the question says, 2 Timothy 1:7 says, God has not given us a spirit of fear. And Cassandra, you just mentioned about fear. So the question is, what type of spirit is behind domestic violence, and how do we come against that spirit?
Definitely an evil spirit is behind domestic violence. There's no way you can look at a human being, hurt them, and you're able to come back to that same person like nothing ever happened. It's, you know, it's a mind, you know, it takes your mental stage away from you. So it is definitely a dark spirit. It is not of God. But God is the one that comes in to make that evil spirit realize, oh, I hurt this person. Let me now make it better. You know, so it's definitely a dark. I believe it's a dark spirit.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Evil. Anything that God is not glorified in. There's only two forces in this world, and that's either Satan or it's either God. So you're either serving one or the other, and if you're not serving one, then you're definitely serving the other. But I'm not quite certain. Was the caller asking what was the spirit in the perpetrator, or was the spirit in the individual that was being victimized?
Well, they did not say. They just pretty much asked what type of spirit is behind domestic violence and how do we come against that spirit. So coming against that spirit, how do a person who might not have Christ in their life come against that spirit?
Ooh, well, that's quite difficult, but we know that people that are not Christians, they find their different avenues and getting help. As you mentioned before, some go through they get the therapy, some get counseling from family members or friends. So people do have their different ways of getting free. That's not my story, but for some, there in the secular world, there are Christians, people that are not Christians, that they do get free from that spirit, from that type of offense.
Yeah,
So-
but there is a divine spirit somewhere in there, because Jesus saves. And if you're being abused or you're being hurt and you're able to survive that, that's of God. That's Jesus.
Absolutely.
Jesus saves, because if you don't make it through, then the
Absolutely.
darkness has been the conqueror. You know,
Absolutely.
he
So
won the
whether-
battle.
Exactly. So whether they recognize Christ as their Savior or not, he said he reigns on the just and the unjust. So God finds ways for those, even we don't recognize him. God still bless those that don't
Amen.
serve him. So if they got out, it's because of God.
Amen.
And I've been enraged before. I don't know if you've ever had that anger to the point
absolutely.
where everything turns red, you black out, you can't remember, you get this strength, and you're
Absolutely.
able to do things that you really wouldn't do.
Absolutely.
You know, so but then when you have to, calm yourself down, you look and the first thing oh my God, what am I doing? You know, so the dark power can come over you at any time, but it's only through Christ that you are able to, to save, to heal, to calm down, and be able to make better of a situation.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you
Thank
very
you,
much for
caller.
your responses, and thank
Email.
you also, viewer, for your email. We're going to go ahead and take a quick commercial break, but once again, for those of you just tuning in, feel free to give us a call to 276-318-3773. Be sure to also follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Vessel Radio, and you can also send your prayer requests, comments, questions to vesselradio@gmail.com. We'll be back right after this.
I don't like your friends. A bad influence. No makeup. You don't need people looking at you. Forget your family. If you love me, I should be all you need. I gotta yell because you don't listen. Who do you think you Do not look at me like that. Don't look at me like that. Don't look at me like that. Look at me like that, moron! Don't judge me. No one judges me. Crying. Get up. Move your ass, bitch. Sick. You're a hopeless pig. Worthless. Don't you dare get up. Just stay down.
No.
In the United States, a woman is beaten every 15 seconds. You can escape. Contact the Domestic Violence Hotline for help.
Welcome back to the Vessel Ministry Over Industry. Once again, my name is Craig, otherwise known as Shazan. To my right, we have Miss Cassandra Archer, a.k.a. the Divine Diva of Comedy. And to my left, we have Minister Alicia James. We are here talking about domestic violence and abuse. You know, a lot of people think about domestic violence and abuse and obviously think that that pertains strictly to women. However, there are definitely men that are being abused as well. But one of the things I do want to touch on is something, Alicia, you brought up about not having a father figure present.
Yes.
Shortly, you're going to hear a conversation that took place from a close friend of mine. I won't mention her name, but you're going to hear a testimony of hers. Unfortunately, she was impacted by domestic violence in a very different way. While also being abused herself at one point in her life, where she was really impacted from was her sister was murdered. And the way in which she found out about it was over Facebook. So we're going to go ahead, play a quick audio clip. She did listen in last week, and she was very touched by the testimonies, but it also brought up emotions that was very difficult for her to be able to share live with us. So she did decide to provide her testimony for everyone to hear. So please go ahead and listen into this testimony from a close friend of mine concerning her experience with domestic violence.
Hello everyone. I first would like to say thank you to my friend for letting me share my story and my testimony. I had a lot of anxiety about sharing this because, of course, it's not easy to talk about. And but I thought to myself, you know, if it can help somebody, at least one person, then it's worth it for me to push myself to do this. So basically, my sister was murdered by her boyfriend and the father of her baby. And he not only murdered her and shot her in the head, but he also killed 2 of our cousins just because they were there. And proceeded to take my nephew and run out the building with him, but the cops came in time, and so he just shot himself and dropped the baby. I found out this news while I was in Asia teaching English overseas, and I found out on Facebook. I seen all these messages in Facebook saying, "I'm so sorry for your loss, oh my God," and this, that, and the other. And I had no idea what they were talking about so I called home, and I'm like screaming, "Who died? What happened?" And found out that it was my sister, and it was broadcasted all over Connecticut. I'm not sure how far it reached, but I know it was a big thing on Connecticut for like over a week. And it's so sad because we've been robbed twice of our relationship together. I didn't meet her until later on in life, till I was about like 13, through my father, and I was really angry about that when finding out. And then before I left to go to Asia, she was talking about moving down to Texas, where I was living before I left and where I was going back to. And so we got robbed twice, and it just hurts my heart because she was such a good girl with a bad boy. I mean, totally a good girl with a bad boy. I mean, I haven't personally met him. All I know is the stories that my father has told me, and how as soon as he met him, he knew he wasn't a good guy, and he was trying to get Brittany, which is my sister's name, away from him. She finally got to the point where she didn't want to be with him anymore. He just was not having that. He was threatening her, you know, and saying that he had nothing to lose and this, that, and the other. And she was trying to stay away from him, but he got into the building, and this was the ending result. I had spoke to her before I left, and I remember us having a conversation that she didn't want to be with him anymore, and she noticed all these red flags and everything like that. And I want to say to you girls, like, because I've gone through it myself, don't ignore the red flags. I know we all hear the same thing, but it's real. Like, when you see those red flags, you need to really be aware of what's going on and stop making excuses for the person you're with. Even on the other side, whether it be a girl or a guy, stop making excuses for the person and trying to think that you can change them or make them better or this, that, and the other. They have to do that on their own. And we do that a lot as women. I myself am someone who's done the same thing and been through some BS myself. But we have to stop making excuses and know that we deserve better, you know. And a lot of it comes from, I know as women, it comes from not having our dad. And we tolerate things that we shouldn't. Because I am from Howard University. I graduated from Howard University, I should say. And a lot of my friends who have had their dads, I have noticed a bigger difference in them compared to the ones that didn't. And me and my sister didn't really have my father. So, you know, I think that...
All right. Welcome once again to the Vessel Ministry Over Industry. That was, again, a testimony from a close friend of mine who unfortunately lost not only her sister, but also cousins from a domestic violence situation where the incident took place. Her sister, her family was murdered, and the way in which she found out about it was over Facebook. One of the things that she did mention, which was very impacting to me was the absence of having a father figure. Joining with us also this evening on the phone, we have a very special guest. Her name is Miss Maddie Palmer. She is actually one of the co-founders of a peer support group called the Women's Group of Mount Vernon. Yes. It is a peer support group that offers participants a place for friendship and space for healing. Their mission statement is simple. It's our struggles were meant to build us up and thus allowing us to be a blessing and a healing comfort to other women and to let them know that they can love themselves. We believe that life offers you a hand up and not a hand out. Maddie, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
All right, welcome to our ministry. Maddie, we thank you for being a part of this broadcast with us. Why don't you go ahead and tell our viewers who you are, a little bit about yourself, and your own personal testimony.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm Maddie Palmer. I'm with the co-founder of the Women's Group of Mount Vernon, along with my co-founder. Her name is Kari Warren. I believe that God orders your steps, and I could not figure out where God was leading me when I was going through. I'm a retired magistrate for Fairfax County, a retired case manager who helps homeless people and people surviving from child sexual abuse and domestic violence. I am a survivor and overcomer of domestic violence and child sexual abuse. I fled here to Fairfax County, Virginia, over 33 years ago, literally running for my life. I was totally abused. My perpetrator, and I'll use the word perpetrator because that's what we call the abuser out here in Virginia. My perpetrator, allegedly, what he did was isolated me from my family. And then because I was looking for love in all the wrong places after being abused as a child, so I looked for love with an older male. He isolated me from my family. He did just a lot of crazy things. What he did was I was beat, and my story is so long that I'm going to give you the short version. I was beaten. When you all got flowers for Valentine's Day, I got beat up, and then I got my flowers. Unfortunately, we know that domestic violence is an ugly gift that keeps on giving. But it is by the grace of God that I stand here talking to you because of this, for a long time, I was not able to look into the mirror. A couple of years ago, maybe 15 years ago, I decided that to face my fear of looking in the mirror, because what I saw was ugliness. I didn't love myself. I didn't care about myself, so I hid behind things. And understand, I can't give you the full version, but understand that if you don't love yourself, you can't help anybody else, and you don't love anybody else. So what I did is I looked in the mirror, and I fought my fear of looking in the mirror. And from that day forth, I started praying and asking God to help me and to show me where I was supposed to be. And I hid behind makeup. I used to be a model, very skinny, nice-looking girl that was basically beat down because my self-esteem was so low that even in my family members looked at me as if I felt that I was like a black sheep of the family because of all the abuse that I had been through. So I just began to just look around for people to love me. And then I realized that I had to love myself, and nobody loved me but God. And I thank Him every day for where He has brought me from. I'm going to jump around and tell you a little bit about the Women's Group of Mount Vernon. I noticed that you said that we help women. We also help males. There are men that are abused also. We are a peer support group that helps male and females, to overcome and healing. We don't have psychiatrists and people coming in to talk to us because we have to deal with ourselves. How we do that, we offer them healing, we network. Sometimes in those meetings we're raising sand at each other so bad, but we don't start off without prayer because we know that God is going to bring us through all of this. What happened was we had, let me tell you a little bit about the males because a lot of times people think that women are the only ones abused. We had 5 male members who had actually succeeded. Some of them went back to their spouse. And what you need to understand that we are not a male bashing or woman bashing group. We're about healing and deliverance. And God has delivered a lot of it. And I can't, because of the confidentiality, I can't tell you some of the cases. Sometimes when I do, we speak out because we will talk about it. But I'm trying to think. It's just so much. But like I said, domestic violence is the gift that keeps on giving, and it's an ugly gift that you never want to have in your life. I literally was the worst part, what made me leave. I tried to stay because I wanted my family to be together and my children. I have 3 children, and now I have 10 grandchildren. I thank God every day that I'm kept here to see them. I was literally, because I would not give him my paycheck, which I promised him because he had gotten totally control of my mind, he tried to drive me into the Anacostia River in D.C. That's when I had a wake-up call and knew that it's time to go. And I had to literally flee to Virginia with plastic bags and my children. You know, another thing I need to let you all know, a lot of people don't talk about, they talk about the mental abuse and physical abuse, but they don't talk about the financial abuse. Financial abuse is controlling too, because you don't, if they control your money, you don't have a way to do anything.
That's true.
And mine was a lot of controlling with the money. I had nothing. We tried to, you know, like I said, I tried to stay because of my children. And I noticed that a lot of our victims are abused financially. And another issue that we also deal with, the human trafficking with the young women. We deal with young women and males too, because the abuse can start as early as 16 years old for domestic violence or younger, but the human trafficking will start at maybe 10 years old or older.
Wow.
And we're dealing with a lot of that now here in Fairfax County, which is a form of domestic violence, but you can't mix both of them together because they're 2 different situations.
Right.
Maddie, now I know within your group you have a slogan that says, I love myself, I know I'm grand. Why don't you tell our viewers, what does that mean?
Okay. I love myself, I know I'm grand. I got that slogan because as I was healing, my daughter was in a Head Start program, and I went to, the Head Start teaches you how to, they train you. And I went to this workshop, and there was a gentleman there was a workshop there that said, I love myself, I know I'm grand. I said, this is crazy. How can anybody think that? I went to that workshop and came out a changed person. But also, I decided when we founded the women's group of Mount Vernon 10 years ago, we gave out mirrors, because the reason we gave out mirrors is because as a victim or whatever, you're not able to look in the mirror because you don't have confidence in yourself. So we gave out mirrors, and we give out butterflies, purple butterflies, T-shirts and bags that say, I love myself, I know I'm grand. The butterfly is to tell you that you're going to soar to greatness. Looking in that mirror, so you have both. But the key is not to keep that mirror or that butterfly, because you're going to eventually run into somebody that you may need to. So it's to pass it along after you have done your healing. So it's like a flow. You're passing it along. and it's been really helpful. There's so many mirrors. I even presented them to the Board of Supervisors of Fairfax County one year because I knew that they would they would be able to pass it on or whatever. Doing what the Women's Group of Mount Vernon, because we have advocated, we not only advocate for the women, we go with them to get the protective orders, to do things that is necessary, offer job training, offer anything that they need to do. And the main thing is spiritual guidance. But one thing I need to tell you that the key to all of this for healing, before you can heal, you just have to ask God to forgive that person. Forgiveness is the key.
Definitely. We have Cassandra here who had a question for you, Maddie.
Okay.
Hi, Miss Maddie. We were connected.
Hi, Cassandra.
Hi, sweetie. You and I were connected through Minister Donna Frazier, and I'm so happy to.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
We're looking at you to be one of our speakers one year.
Yes,
probably
ma'am.
Next year.
I'm looking forward to it. I just wanted to make a note. When you said financially, finances was one of my my segues to get away. My abuser was very money hungry, and once I found that money could be a vice for him to stay away, that's one of the things that I used. So if he came home and I can tell, this is going to be an episode, I always had, some money where I would just take my money out, or I would leave it where he would, like I was trying to hide it, but I would, make sure that he saw it to find it. And that would totally change his whole persona. I mean, it was done. But, it was just the craziest thing in my leaving the money in the bank. He tried to take all of the money out of the bank, and at that time, the ATMs would only give you $300 at a time, and luckily he couldn't get all of the money out. But my mother used to always say, "Keep a nest egg," keep a nest egg. And I'm teaching some young women that right now, that nest egg that he doesn't know about, that he would never know about. And thank God I did have my nest egg somewhere else where he didn't even know about the money that was coming in.
And that's what we need to do.
Yeah.
And another thing, Cassandra, my co-founder, she hid her money in the freezer in a certain thing that nobody knew. He didn't even know it was there because he was so busy beating her, and he literally beat her almost to death, broke her nose. And here's the kicker. I was a magistrate and I didn't realize it, I was the magistrate that had issued all of her paperwork.
Wow.
And then we started working. That's how God works. He puts people in your place that's going to help you. And sometimes you have to be careful. We're scared because we don't know who's who.
That's right.
And she ended up started working with me on another job. And this girl was walking around just acting crazy. I said, how is she doing this? What happened was she wanted to tell me about her situation because this guy was continuously stalking her and everything. I was stalked. I don't know, Cassandra, if you were stalked, but I was stalked everything. When you're in this situation, you're in fear of your life. Yes. The money situation that you're talking about, I used to promise to give him money so that he wouldn't beat me.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am. I can relate.
That was my life. That was like my lifesaver was the money.
Yes.
And then he decided to do what he wanted to do with it, or lounge it out to me, or whatever. And here's the thing: I had to steal my own money back to get to work. Now that's crazy. It's crazy now, but thank God. Oh, but God got me out of that.
Yes, ma'am.
He is deceased now. And he came to our daughter's graduation and with his chest out and everything. But then I could look at him because I had forgiven him.
Yes.
But before, when I left, I didn't want to see him, no parts of him. He even followed me to Virginia.
Wow. Maddie, one of the things that I've heard from now you, Alicia, as well as Cassandra, is about being able to forgive. And ultimately, we know that is God who has instilled and teaches us about the spirit of forgiveness. Why don't you share with our viewers, as well as Alicia and Cassandra, how is it that you can find the strength to be able to forgive someone that has abused you for years? How is that possible?
I did that at one of my workshops. I told people that, and you should have heard the gasp in the audience. I said, because God had delivered me.
Yes.
And once you get that deliverance, you're able to do what He has. You have to listen to God.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And that's how I found the strength to forgive him, because I even jumped out of a car. He beat me in front of the kids. I was jumping out of the car and things like that. And when I tell this, people tend to look at me and say, how can you forgive him? Because, but God, once God delivers you, then you're able to move forward. But until that time, but you can't move forward until you forgive.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
But God gave me strength to do that. He gave me strength to face them.
And you can't have that strength unless you forgive. My thing was,
yes.
You talking about jumping out of cars. I mean, it's so many of our stories are so similar. We've gone through so much of the same thing. I can remember having patches of my hair pulled out and just but the forgiveness, when I look at him today, if he sees me and he can see the God in me and I'm a survivor and I'm here despite of what you did to me, despite of what you took me through. You know, all of the hurt and the pain. The black eyes can heal, but I'm still here. I'm still standing. You didn't break me. That gives me the victory. So I look forward to seeing him. When he sees me, I walk like a peacock, because you couldn't break me. You couldn't harm me. You could not take this child of God. And I'm here today so I can make sure that other people, Miss Maddie and this fool, you know, I told him I'm writing a book, Miss Maddie. I said, I'm writing about what you did to me. I'm writing about what you took me through. And I want everybody to know, not just the animal that you are, but the sick person, you know, because maybe you can find some help. And this fool told me, well, if you're going to write about me, I want half of the proceeds.
You know what?
Wow. It never ends. And he's still that. I mean, that's just how he was when I was abused. The same type of mentality. It was just the same way where he could slap me down and then be so sarcastic about it, like it was something that I should have expected, or, you know, that I was waiting for. But I just thank God for you, Miss Mann. I thank God for Minister Alicia, because we are here to express to these people, listeners tuning in, please, if you're going through this, take us as an example. You can overcome this. You can get away. You can run away and start a new life. I'm a new person. I'm a new breed. Amen. And I can't, you know, I thank God for the memories. I don't want to forget. I don't want to forget, because that's my power. That's my strength. Because I'm a survivor. I'm a conqueror. I'm a fighter.
But you have forgiven. That's
yes.
the main thing.
Yes.
And most people often think that you have to forget. You know that old saying, if you forgive, you forget.
Yeah. No.
Which is not true. Absolutely not true. For remembering causes us not to go back into that same situation. You know, it causes you to, you know, there's a scripture in the Bible that talks about how a dog go back to its vomit. And you can only go back to your when God gave me that and gave me that scripture about a dog going back to its vomit, he was showing me how there was something in the inside that didn't belong in the first place.
Yes.
So if your body knew enough to throw it up, the body knows when it doesn't belong.
Yes.
So, and you take that in a spiritual sense. You know, know when something does not, it did not belong. So to remember, you have to remember that process. You have to remember that pain, and you remember what God has brought you through. You know, for me, for forgiveness, the first thing it took me is to learn to forgive myself.
Yes.
Because I had help. I had hatred for myself, not knowing that, you know, not understanding that. Back to what you said, is that you had to learn how to love you. And when you went to the school and you were saying, you know, how can you possibly have that? And when you live in darkness for so long, it's hard for you to see past the darkness. You can't see past the darkness. You can't see past the pain.
Yeah.
So when you learn to forgive yourself, and as you stated, your deliverance, and once you are delivered, then you're able to set others free. Then you're able to forgive. You know, but to be able to look in their eyes, and as I stated in my last time here, I told God I didn't want him to go to jail. I didn't want God to send me to another state to be free for him. I wanted him to see me free.
Yes.
We're going to take a quick... I'm sorry, Maddie, hold on. Maddie, I'm sorry. We're going to take a quick commercial break. For those of you tuning in, feel free to give us a call at 276-318-3773. I'm here with Miss Cassandra Archer, Minister Alicia James, and on the phone with Miss Maddie Palmer, co-founder of the women's group of Mount Vernon. We will be right back.
Cassandra, where are you rushing off to?
I'm trying to get to Manassas, Virginia for the Faith, Love, and Laughter show.
But Cassandra, that's not until February.
That's okay. I want to get there as early as I can. Don't you know Christian comedian E. Boogie will be there? And Marcus D. Wiley?
But Cassandra, do you have your ticket yet?
I don't need a ticket. I'm performing. I'm the divine diva of comedy. I'm going to go to Manassas and hit that mic. I'm going to bring it. I'm going to be there. You should too. See ya.
Inspiration, have my spirit flying higher. Inspiration gives me reason to inspire.
Hey, you're gonna be coming up in here pulling that on me. And he's just so smart mouth. They always got something to say back. Just ready to talk. I said, you think you're so smart, don't you? Cause I am. I said, spell cat. He said, C-A-T. I said, spell dog. He said, D-O-G. I said, spell Mississippi. He said, the river or the stick. I keep telling these kids, I'm sitting to live with their daddy. I'm sitting to live with their daddy. As soon as I find out who he is, take go.
Inspiration helps me find the words to say. Inspiration was given to me long ago.
All right, welcome once again. Before we close out, we were blessed to have another caller on the line who is the other co-founder of the women's group of Mount Vernon. Caller, can you hear us?
Kari Warren.
Yes, Kari, good afternoon. Good evening. Can you hear us?
I sure can.
All right, Kari. Now, you just made a very good point while we were off the air during our commercial break. Please be sure to share your view with our viewers.
Hi, I was watching your show, and I'm so happy to see everything that has been brought out today. And hello to everybody, and hello, Maddie. Surprise, surprise. Everything that has been brought out has been some of the most important aspects of domestic violence. But one of the things that and Maddie is going to agree with me completely, but one of the biggest pieces of domestic violence that so many victims go through is spiritual abuse. An abuser will use the Bible, will use her God, will use her religion against her in this whole cycle. And it was used against me. And as a consequence, 20-some years ago, my husband used my own church against me. And my church didn't recognize what was going on. And this is a huge issue within our own congregations and our own churches. They don't recognize what is happening behind the closed doors of their own parishioners. And they don't see all the pain as much as they want to help, and as much as they want to reach out and help the lambs within their congregations. They don't see this deep, dark pain, and many times it's because they don't know what to do about it. And in my own case, it was enough to shut a door that never was to be opened. And I'm very deeply spiritual, deeply faithful. Maddie knows this. But even into this day, my children have never been raised in a church home, and that is, to this day, my deepest pain of all, in all of domestic violence. We've been able to recover from so many things, but that is the one pain as a mother that I still experience. My children have never been raised in a church home.
Well, Kari, and I hate the fact that we are out of time.
Yep.
One thing I will say to you and to your family and to our viewers, it's never too late to accept Christ into your life, to continue to be.
I have it. My children have it. But there's a church home, and that's something that is churches, and that's what I'm saying. That the churches need to band together. The churches need to get out there.
Definitely.
And do something. Right.
Well, listen, between the two of you, if you can please just quickly tell our viewers where they can go ahead and contact you at. I understand that you are able to be reached, even though your organization is in the Virginia area, but you are accepting support, and people from all over can contact you. So please share with our viewers before we conclude our ministry this evening how people in need of your support can reach you.
Yes. You can reach us. The best place is we're on Facebook, and it's called the Women's Group of Mount Vernon. We're just look us up on Facebook, or you can look us up on through email, and it's Women's Group MV, M as in Mary, V as in Victor, at gmail.com.
All right. Excellent. Well, again, we thank both of our co-founders of the Women's Group of Mount Vernon, Kari as well as Maddie Palmer, on the phone. Again, to my right is Miss Cassandra Archer, a.k.a. the Divine Diva of Comedy. To my left, we have Minister Alicia James. And again, my name is Craig, otherwise known as Shazan. We thank you once again for being able to tune in to our broadcast. As always, be sure to feel free to reach us on Instagram and Twitter at Vessel Radio, or via email, vesselradio@gmail.com. We can continue the discussion even on the phone or text message by calling us at 276-318-3773. As I promised you, next week I will not be your host. I'm going to return the microphone back over to our beautiful host, the Divine Diva of Comedy. But in honor of Valentine's Day and for all those in love, our next topic for next week will be as follows. A man who finds a wife finds a good thing and obtains favor from the Lord. What does a woman who finds a husband obtain? Thank you again. It has been a pleasure being your special guest host. God bless you. May you all have a great week, and see you again next Tuesday.
Thank you.
Ministry over industry, the vessel. Ministry over industry, the vessel. Ministry over industry, the vessel. Longing for the truth, a body hunger falsehood ever since I was a youth. So many false doctrines, I stay confused, constantly being mentally abused, until I heard the good news. The Savior took my place, a God died so I could be saved, and that's grace. The King from heaven, no longer in the grave, and that's great. But wait, he now lives so that I can live to share my faith. An earthen vessel with the spirit in my temple. Music for my mental as my heart transformed by his love. So sentimental. Life beats your body. It's like a drum. I like the blood in the vessel gets numb. The word is sent to protect you from the slaughter. Like Jesus, a vessel, it floats on water. I thirst to live